Hey, glad to be back with you again. And today's topic is designing your environment for success. And this is a huge topic, and it's inspired by yet another book I've been reading. I know a lot of people are like, Chris, you're always reading. I am. It's called Willpower Doesn't Work by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, one of my favorite authors. He has come onto my radar even more recently. I've been reading his books for a few years off and on, but I'm kind of taking this deep dive recently with his books because so much of it is about the psychology of leadership and success and productivity. And it's all the things that I think everybody really wants, but doesn't really know how to get. And so reading this book, it's really been eye-opening to me because he talks about how the reason your willpower doesn't work is because your environment is working against you. So, for instance, he says if you want to lose weight, then what's in your environment? Do you have junk food in your environment? Do you have snacks? Do you have ice cream? Do you have unhealthy foods that are competing against your goal? What about distractions at work? Is your office cluttered? Is your desk cluttered? Are you in a noisy environment that you can't get things done? Your environment matters. And that's kind of where he really dives deep into this, is that you can't be successful if you have all these competing things around you in your environment, and you're always going to be limited to what you can accomplish. And that's a big wake up call for most of us. It's like, I know for myself, I started paying attention, in my home office here. I sit there and look around, and, on one level, I'm surrounded by my books and the things that I've learned so much about. That's a positive. But what you don't see in this shot right now is the clutter on my desk, and even things that I probably just need to get rid of and purge off my bookshelves that are just old materials that I just don't really use and pay attention to anymore. So I guess my point is that we don't even realize what's competing against ourselves. And if we are wanting to take our success to a new level, and that could be relationally as well as professionally, it could be, what are you setting yourself up for with your spouse or your kids? Are you providing environments and being present in those environments that allow you to really be successful? Are you designing the environment for the goals that you have? And that's really where he goes deep into this in this book as well. That really is just, I don't know, it's just a lot of things are just starting to really make sense to me about what competes against our attention. What are the things that are really holding us back? And for me, it's like I think about how many times my best ideas, and he talks about this specifically towards the end of the book, but he's saying we even need to get out of certain environments for creative work. So we have shifted, and this is a big part of it, right? Is as leaders, I think this is key. I think this is really something we need to pay attention to. We're operating in a traditional 9 to 5 world, and many times, obviously, people work well past nine, or well past five rather, and start well before nine. And so we're working in these long hours in a culture that doesn't really exist anymore the way that 9 to 5 mindset started back, in the industrial period, where it was more about getting things done on, 3 shifts a day and rotating. And it's the assembly line model that Henry Ford created. That's the world the 9 to 5 model was really created within. And yet now we're in this technological digital age where we can get so many things done differently. And so much of our work is more knowledge work, mental work, than it is physical work. Yes, there's still productivity. Yes, there's still manufacturing. Yes, there's still physical labor that's out there for sure. But the reality is that most people that are in office jobs in particular, we're not doing that. It's not physical work. It's not about doing the same repetitive tasks or building something over and over. It's about knowledge. It's about creativity. It's about using our minds so that we can then use a computer and then get the task done. So he just addresses this head on, and he says, we're not mentally and psychologically built for 9 hours of thinking and knowledge work, really. And I've heard this years ago. I remember Darren Hardy talked about this in some other training I was in, that really we have about 3 to 4 hours a day where we can truly be on when it comes to our knowledge work, when it comes to using our minds. Now, can you do other things beyond that? Sure, you can, but that's the physical, when you're active and you're doing things, right? And Cal Newport also addresses this when he talks about deep work, and he talks about, giving yourself the best opportunity to get that best work done when you're freshest, when you have the most energy. And he even talks about, I believe it's in Deep Work. He's written a few books, but Deep Work, I think, is where he mentions that a lot of people that do knowledge work that are most successful, whether it be authors, whether it be uh, scientists, where you're constantly thinking about formulas or products or services or whatever. He says a lot of people that are most successful actually they go do physical work, hobbies even, as a way to uh, pivot from the knowledge work, and it helps them. So I've thought about that, and I've even paid attention when I'm kind of in I'll say I start to feel like I'm getting mentally tired, and I'll maybe go outside and do some yard work. I'll go out and do some physical things outside the house that I need to get done. Just go get moving, get active, because sitting in front of the computer screen isn't productive after a certain point. So I know this is a lot that I'm just kind of throwing at you right now, but the reality is that we are living in a different kind of world than the 9 to 5 work structure was designed in. And it made sense. And it makes sense in certain realms, right? And there's certain industries, right? If my dad was in retail for 30 some years, and the stores have to be open, right? You have to have people on the floor to help customers and to sell and to check people out. And yet, even that, right? We look around now, and even that, you go into a restaurant, McDonald's or other fast food restaurants, and now you have computer kiosks. So you don't even need as many people to be doing the things that in generations past need to be done physically or to be present. And while that's feels like a threat to some people about jobs and work and security, it also shows just how technology has changed things. And we're in a different kind of world, a different kind of reality today than we were back then. So think about that in your work, whether it's you personally or whether it's your team that you're leading, your employees you're leading. Are you being most productive? Are they being most productive? Are you setting the environment, designing that environment to be the most effective for yourself and your team so that you can ultimately meet the goals that you really have? This is a big topic. There's a lot to be unpacked, I'll say, in this. It's interesting. This book was published back in, I think, 2018, before COVID hit. And he even just talked about in the one chapter I was reading about how, companies were already making those adjustments to more remote work or flexible hours. And I was talking to somebody even just yesterday about how hybrid work is really, becoming more important because it gives people flexibility, not just personally, right? That helps the morale. That if I have flexibility personally to go do things with my kids or with my family or appointments that I might have, but it also helps when you look at it from this knowledge work, it helps people be fresher because if people can work for, let's say sprintable times of like 2 to 3 to 4 hours and then take a break and go do something, even he was mentioning that there was I think it was an executive from a technology company and talked about, that they can't get their best ideas from their employees just stuck in an office all day long. So they're okay with them, going out, taking walks, being gone from the office because their creativity happens later. It's funny, literally this morning, I know this is true what they're talking about in this book and these other books I've been recommending already. I was getting up, getting ready this morning, and I had a new idea about an add-on or an upgrade to how I teach my magnetic leadership content. It was in that, moment of showering, getting dressed. It wasn't sitting in front of my computer. It was me getting ready. And I thought, you know what, maybe there's a thing that I can maybe do with this. And I had, pieces started to connect like a puzzle, but it wasn't sitting in front of my computer, right? And like now I'll come to my computer and do work to put things together and outline things and map it out and use the technology for that. But it wasn't in sitting in my office here that brought that idea. It was doing something else. And the reason that happens, he says, is because when we're doing other things, other environmental aspects that were around start to, help us connect the dots in our minds. So creativity, mental work, knowledge work, whatever you want to call it, requires a different environment than, let's say, blue collar labor, right? And even that, right? My grandfather, he was a sheet metal worker. My son is going into the electrical industry, and a lot of that is problem solving. You're thinking about how do we run wire to this part of the building? How do we fix this problem? And I guarantee that if you talk to people in different industries, that their problem solving probably happens at different times, not just while they're on the job staring at the problem, but it's when they walk away. It's when they maybe are at home. It may be, literally they could be coaching their kids' softball team, and all of a sudden an idea hits because they're not focused on it right there. I love to play the game Wordscapes, and it's an interesting thing where there's times where I'll get to like two different, or like maybe two words left that I can't figure out based on the letters I have, and I'll just turn it off, and I'll go do some other things, and all of a sudden the words start to come to me, or I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that one, and then I go back to the game, and whether I've already thought about the word or I just see it fresh from a different point of view, now I finish that puzzle very quickly. And I've noticed that, like, literally about this game, is this is something that I just kind of do in my downtime. But when I get stuck, the best thing I can do is turn it off, go do something else, and come back to it. And I'm like at level 2600 now or something. That means I've done 2600 and some puzzles, word puzzles. And I've seen this happen repeatedly over and over and over, where all these words that I'm stuck on, I see I'm staring at all these, letters that are not connected, and all of a sudden, once again, it's either while I'm away from the game it comes to me, or I come back to the game and I see it fresh and different. So think about that for yourself. Think about that for your team. Are you designing environments? Are you putting yourself in the right environment? That's the other thing he talks about, is each environment needs to be designed for the task at hand or the goal at hand. So, you have to be in an environment that's going to support and encourage the success of your goal or of your project. So, if you need deep thinking time, what does that look like for you? For some people, that's I need to be in a coffee shop, just have some background noise, just be, in a different environment. For others, I know for me at times I've just gone to like a local park and sat down at a picnic table under a shelter and just had nature around me, and I'm not distracted by just typical office things. Other times I need to be literally in my office, like hunkered down at my desk in front of my computer, focusing. And when I wrote my books, The Way to Greatness first, and then The Magnetic Leader, what I did was once I had the outline put together, once I knew where I was going with the books, I blocked out 90 minutes a day until I got those chapters done. And I gave myself 90-minute windows to write a chapter at a time. And when I did that, I was here in my office, and I was very focused, but it was structured. I knew when I sat down in my chair in front of my computer to write, that was my writing time. So whatever your environment needs to be to help you be successful, make it so. If I would have gone to Panera Bread or Starbucks or some other coffee shop and tried to write my books, it would not have worked. It just would not have worked, because that was not the space, and there was too much distractions, too many noises around me if I'm in that environment. But once again, for other things, that might be a great place to go. So you have to know yourself to lead yourself, first of all. You also need to know your people to lead them better and to give them the flexibility that they may need. You need to think about a project and say, okay, what is it going to take to accomplish this project? What's the type of environment that is needed for this project to be successful, to achieve this goal, whatever it may be, and then design that environment to make that happen. So, once again, do some thinking about this. If you're feeling stuck, and I guarantee if you start really thinking about this, you'll realize this is when I'm at my best and this is when I'm struggling. For some people, and there's psychological studies that are like, people are best in the morning after they wake up, and you have like this 3 to 4 hour window where your mind is fresh and you're not run down. And I believe that's true to many, to much degree. However, I also know people who say, you know what, I'm really best at night. I'm really best, late at night. It's just how you're wired. For me, I used to be a night owl. I talk about this in other places where I'm like, I flipped my schedule because part of it was our family dynamic. When I used to like to be up and read and do work late at night, that was fine. But then when we had kids and they got up earlier and things were different in our family and our house, I realized I need to change my schedule. I needed to get up earlier in order to adjust to the season I was in. And now my kids are teenagers, so it's just different again. And so for me, I like mornings now, but it took me, I had to pivot, I had to adjust. It wasn't good and fun at first, But now I love my morning routine. I love getting up early and getting into the day. And it for me, it's like a long on ramp to the day. Whereas I know other people, it's like they wake up if they need to be at work at 9, they wake up like at 8, 8:15, 8:30, and they jump in the shower, they jump in their clothes, they jump in their car, they run to, go to the office, and they're like, it's a full out sprint from the time their eyes wake, open. But that's not how I operate. I like to ease into the day. We're all different, right? We're all different, but you have to design your environment, you have to design your schedule, you have to make sure that you're setting yourself up for the things that matter most to be the most effective. So I just want to encourage you today to think about that. What does your environment do? Is it helping facilitate your success, or is it competing against your success? Is it helping you be at your best, being at your optimal levels, or is it actually working against you, and it's actually minimizing your impact of what you can do in that day or in that moment? So think about that. Think about your projects. What do I need to do for this project versus that project versus the next? Once again, each of them could have different environmental needs. So that's okay. That's okay. But just pay attention to that so that you can ultimately adjust and pivot so that you can truly be at your best. And if you need to rethink this 9 to 5 work schedule, maybe you say, hey, we're going to be really focused in the morning till lunchtime, and then in the afternoon, it's going to be very flexible. That's an option. Or you say, hey, we're going to do deep work as a team. We're going to, be focused. We're going to protect our environment in the morning. We'll schedule meetings with people in the afternoon so that it's a little different. That's fine. Whatever it looks like for you, right? Like every business, every situation is different. I get that. I'm not trying to say there's just one size fits all approach. There's not, but it means that you need to design and customize your environment for giving yourself the best opportunity to be the most successful. So, hope that's helpful. I do encourage you to pick up a copy of Willpower Doesn't Work because it's a very powerful book, but I also just encourage you to check out all of Dr. Benjamin Hardy's books because he's a great writer. He's bringing up a lot of great insights and strategic thinking and organizational leadership that I believe that you can benefit from. So, I'm a huge advocate for his content and what he's putting out there because it's been very eye opening to me in many ways. Been very revolutionary in my thinking, and as I start to implement the things that he talks about, and that's the key. Don't just read it, do it. As I implement the things that I'm learning from him, it's really starting to just truly reshape how I operate and starting to really help me think about my business and life and all the things that what could be, taking a vision, taking a goal to whole new levels because of all the things that he's bringing forth in his books. So, encourage you to check him out if you haven't heard of him before, haven't read any of his stuff before. Great guy, um, super smart, and very practical. So, take care, God bless, and we'll see you next time.